All right, so Maria, I'm really excited to be connecting with you today.
Thanks, same here.
If you were to look back 3 to 5 years from now and see that this coaching conversation with me changed everything for you about your LSAT prep, what would need to happen?
I just basically to get a better understanding, as you call it, the LSAT mindset. I think that just kind of nails it. And I'm not there yet. I did take a standard. I have been taking standardized tests throughout school. I had to take my nursing boards in order to pass. And it was just a real kind of shock that my nursing boards are nothing like this. Some people are like, well, you should be okay. You pass your nursing boards. I heard that's pretty hard. Well, it's nursing boards, you study content. These, you study technique to take the test. And I think that is the big downfall. So for me, just to get into that mindset, to have a better understanding of how to approach the questions versus really study the content, of course, which is impossible. And that I just get the score that basically is going to get me into the law school that I want. And that's basically it.
Sure. Those are big questions. So the mindset versus the content of the exam.
Right.
What's missing for you in your prep right now? How have you been, what's been giving you the biggest struggles?
My biggest struggle, it's the logic games. I am kind of embarrassed to say that the first time that I took the LSAT, I pretty much guessed because A, I ran out of time. B, panicked at the point where on my second game, I couldn't, like the diagrams that I had set up were just not working, were not leading me anywhere. So at that point I panicked, and I honestly, for most of them, I think I just guessed. So to me, that is the biggest, it's time consuming, frustration, and I don't get it. Now, in all fairness, I just haven't really put the time to try to understand it. I did watch videos. I did use the book that I got when I first studied and before I took them. But, that is perhaps my biggest thing, following by the reading comprehension. It was difficult as well.
Sure. Yeah, logic games especially are extremely intimidating at first.
Total. Yep.
But there is a method to the madness, and there is a plan of attack you can use so that step by step, day by day, you know exactly what to be doing over the course of your prep. And that's what I've laid out for you in the courses as well, to basically watch these lesson videos on these types of logic games, then complete these exact specific games out of the exams.
Right.
And so it's not just do one section, then another section, because they're all mixed up.
Right.
I'd rather you have you do the ordering games first and start with the easiest ordering games, then work your way up to the more difficult ones. So you're progressing in a logical fashion within each category.
Okay. I do have a question, I guess, that refers to the logic games given my circumstances the first time, and I'm hoping that's not going to be the case for the second and hopefully last. But in the event that, let's say I get it, I'm doing well, something happens, I run out of time, and I didn't keep track of my time, and now I don't really have the time. Is there really a method to guess, like to make the most appropriate guess, or there's really no such thing?
For guessing, yes and no. I mean, you can certainly eliminate a couple of choices.
Okay.
What I recommend doing is you basically, in logic games, you have 3 types of questions. You have the initial orientation question, then the local if questions that give you a jumping off point. They'll say, like, if A is on 3, then what must be true? Then they'll have the global general question saying, which one the following in general must be true.
Okay.
What you can do is you can use all your previous valid hypothetical scenarios that you've sketched out, your little mini diagrams. You can use that work to help you eliminate choices from tougher global must be true questions.
Okay.
And so if you make use of that previous work and work more efficiently, that will help you eliminate some choices so that you can make a more informed guess between the remaining ones, and your odds will be higher.
Okay. I guess along my second question, along that same line, if I remember correctly, one of the techniques that I read at some point was that, if you were in one particular area and they were asking you questions about that same scenario or setup, to look back at the other questions that you had eliminated and to use those to help you in the event that you cannot figure out the question that they're asking you. Is it really worth doing something like that, or are you just kind of going to waste more time doing that?
I think what you're describing is pretty much what I was just talking about, which is using that previous work.
I see.
That previous work is totally valid and definitely worth using. And so if you can keep your diagrams organized, keep them neat, don't ever erase previous work, always have it remain available to you in the future. Because you're building up a bank or a library of valid scenarios, things that you know work. And so those could potentially help you in the future and help you either avoid having to draw new diagrams or help you more quickly arrive at the correct answer for a global question.
Okay. How is it working out? What have you heard with the digital LSAT? And I apologize if you addressed this during the webinar, but like I mentioned, I had to disconnect for a little bit for something for work. So I don't know if maybe I missed that specific part, but I'm reading that they're going to give you paper and you're able to do like scratch paper essentially. Is it more cumbersome because now you have to look at the screen and then look at the paper and, what have you heard about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, they do give you scratch paper. You get a booklet of about 12 to 14 pages of 8.5 by 11 unlined newsprint type paper.
Okay.
And so you can work out of that, it's more than enough scratch paper. It's not unlimited, but it's all you really need.
Okay.
Now, as for going back and forth between the screen and the paper, some people like it. Some people don't like it. You can practice though. You can use it. If you can have a tablet or can borrow a tablet, you could play around with a couple of exams on LSAC's site and practice going between them to see what you like. I mean, I think it's mixed. There's pros and cons to digital. I think the con might be looking back and forth a little bit or only being able to see one question at a time. But on the plus side, there's a cool flagging questions feature. So you can mark off questions you'd want to come back to later and see at a glance everything you flagged to return to. And also bubbling is much faster. Instead of spending time filling in your oval with a number 2 pencil, with one tap of the stylus, you've selected your answer.
Got it. Okay. Honestly, like my biggest thing right now, other than just, trying to squeeze in the time, I feel overwhelmed in the sense of that I feel I have to tackle everything right now. I know, and I'm reading your, the weekly plan that you gave me, and I'm going to stick to that as best as I can. It's just then my mind starts with you're doing good on the other stuff. So jump in and, just go back to the logic games. Should I just follow what you gave me for the most part and then go back intermittently? And I don't know. I that's the part that I'm just like, I don't even know like where to start in the sense of, should I just go with the weakest thing, which again is the logic games, or what to do as far as that?
Yeah, sure. Well, the LSAT can be overwhelming. There's a lot of different sections, a lot of different question types, and it's unfamiliar. It's new. It's like a foreign language at first.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want you to try and tackle everything at once, because then basically nothing is going to go well. Instead, divide and conquer one thing at a time. And that's what the plan is doing for you. So that step by step, day by day, you know exactly what to be focusing on. And trust that you will get to the other stuff later. And of course, you can flip ahead in the schedule and see we do end up covering everything in the end, all sections, all question types, but focus on one thing at a time. If you want to modify a little bit for weak areas, you can do that. The schedule actually has you start with games because they are typically the most intimidating at first, but they are also the most learnable.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I read a little bit of that on the, when you said read this first. So I've been reading and I've been following you for a while, getting your emails. I have actually pretty much saved every single email that you have sent since I started following you. So it's something that was very important to me, and I think it's very true for a lot of things. But it's the fitting all of this into my day versus trying to fit, the other way around. Like I have to set up a time and kind of try to stick to that time. And of course, this week I'm like, okay, this is great. Like briefly mentioned, I have a job that allows me to work from home. So I have that flexibility to kind of squeeze in the time and do it. But this week has been a complete disaster. And while I'm not in the hurricane at all, I do manage Florida. So that's why it's impacting my work. It's, of course, now I have all of this extra work that I need to do because of the hurricane. But anyways, I think for me, that statement was pretty like, nope, I gotta put in the time and make it a routine where I am doing it and respecting that time. So that was pretty important to me to hear. I don't think I really ever thought of that.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you've got the routine to stick to. Again, the schedule is the guideline for you. That's your
Yeah.
roadmap. That's your success plan. Follow that and stick with it, and you'll be fine in the end.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Great, Maria. Well, I'm really glad that we connected today. What would you
Yep.
say is the biggest insight you got from our conversation?
That the logic games are learnable out of everything. That is huge. That is really good to hear because it is encouraging. And I think it just gives me more motivation. And, just honestly, while it wasn't really anything that you say, just to have that support, I have heard of other people taking these other classes, and I was suggested other courses for prep, but this is so personal, and it really is huge. I'm an older adult. I'm not, in my early 20s. I'm not undergrad looking to go right into grad school. So to have that support and understanding, and that at least I can email you, hey, I have struggle with this question versus this just, kind of overall like, oh, here you are, just do the best that you can and good luck to you. So I think I'll have to say those two things are probably the best thing, honestly. And I know in general, the coaching session, it can happen in other places, but this has felt very personal from the moment that I joined. So thank you.